First off, thank y'all for showing up to this safety seminar session. There's a few things we're going to go over today that hopefully help you out and what a response would look like as far as the school district. We'll also go into detail about why things are the way that they are, and then some other safety features that are in place to help you gather a better understanding. Also, most of you got the survey that was sent out with the board news. If you ask questions on there, we went through, read them, and hopefully I'll be able to address some of those today. With that being said, we could sit here for the rest of the day, the rest of the week, and bump situations off of each other where there is a safety concern, and what would we do? We can what if it to death. We can play devil's advocate to death. That's my job. I get to break holes into every little safety feature that we have and see where we can make it better. But where we learn the most is when other incidents happen, we debrief it and implement changes to hopefully make our schools safer. And we'll go into all that here in just a few. So just know if you got a question, I'll try to answer it. There is absolutely no way to make a school 100% safe. But we can put features into place to make it safer than anywhere else. And we've done just that here, and I think you'll see some of that through this. But again, thank y'all for showing up. I'm gonna have Bernie come up. He'll do a quick presentation on what a response looks like for our school district, because on the heels of any active shooter, like what happened in Appalachia, when it happens closer, we seem to have more questions. But the further away it is, we only ask a few questions. But when it gets closer to home, you start kind of wondering, like, well, gosh, that's not far. I guess it could happen here. And unfortunately, in that incident, there was one that was a Harris County School District employee in the past that lost their life through it. So it does hit home a little bit more. So with that, that's why we put the safety seminar together, to hopefully answer those questions and address it. But at the end, I'll take a handful of questions that you may have that's just burning. But ultimately, if you've got one, I urge you to get with your SRO, get with your administrators, or get with me after the fact, or shoot me an email, give me a call, and we'll try to address them then. Because again, we can bounce them off of each other all day long. So Bernie will come up, go over what a response looked like, and then I'll get into some more stuff. We'll answer questions, and we'll get out of here. So thank y'all again for coming this morning.
Swap that over.
Yeah.
Okay, this is me, and this is also a phone number, so that way down the road, if you decide can't get in touch with anybody else, you need a question answered, by all means, write this phone number down. Just don't call me at midnight whenever you're laying there at midnight, okay? All right, so this PowerPoint's kind of set up for what I teach for my guys, so you have to kind of bear with me a little bit. It's not really designed for y'all, but what it is, we're going to try to go over what our response looks like, so that way if it happens at your school, you have some idea that when you're sitting in your classroom after a lockdown and you've been there an hour and a half, 2 hours, you understand the nightmare that we're dealing with and all the procedures that we're going through trying to get you safe or back to a safe area and get you back home safely, okay? Everybody, this means yes? Are you with me? All right, so the terminal performance objective is everybody to understand basically what their role is. Again, this kind of applies to my guys, what they're going to be doing. Understand each individual officer's role as it relates to a particular active threat scenario based off which school. Understand the role of the command center and the staff's role. That'll usually fall to John and Dr. Bell. Understand departmental goals to ensure safety of all students, staff, eliminate threats, and preserve evidence. Preserve evidence, because still, if it happens, it's still a crime, right? Still a crime scene, something still has to be investigated and sought through. All right, officers assigned to the high school will put school in hard lockdown and notify reserve officers to cover and respond to the location of active threat unless the threat is at the high school. If it's here, Kendall and I will just deal with it. If it's not at the high school, if the threat is at the high school, we'll put on lockdown, and then Kendall and I will just respond. So the school will go on lockdown, and Kendall and I are responding officers to any of the other threats to go and be in support of the SRO that happens to be at your school. Officers will put everybody at some point, once one school goes on lockdown because of an active threat, what is every school going to do? Every school is going to go on lockdown, right? Because just in case, one of the things that active shooters do is they tend to evolve and they tend to get a little more creative, and then they show us something we haven't seen before. We base a lot of our safety protocols and stuff on things we've already seen, and we try to think outside the box as much as we can. And this is one of those things that, actually, I think this was Dr. Bell's idea, believe it or not, was he was concerned that one school would be a decoy, and then they would hit another school, and have multiple shooters and multiple shootings. So the reason why we do this is we put every school on lockdown, and then our officers go to work as far as trying to secure any kind of area that may be inside or outside if they feel is necessary for that particular school. So every school will go on lockdown, stand by for further instruction from the command staff while patrolling grounds of the school. Unless active threat is at your school, the officer will put school on hard lockdown and respond to the active threat accordingly if it's at their particular school. Officer is engaged with the active threat will ensure the threats are neutralized. Take that word however you want to. Will also secure the crime scene. Once the threat is neutralized, then they have a responsibility to secure the crime scene. Okay? So if you see them not actively going to do anything else, understand we have a different job than most, okay? They have to secure the area, the suspect, and all evidence related to the incident. So if this turned into a running gunfight and it run down two different hallways, what is he trying to do? He's trying to preserve that the evidence in those hallways, right? Because we still have to present this to a grand jury at some point, all right? Also, at some point, so as the officers arrive, let's say that Kendall and I arrive, and John will be in response as well. As we arrive, because usually if we have an SRO on scene, it's about 3 minutes, okay? Even as fast as me and Kendall drive and John drive, we probably can't get to any other school in 3 minutes. So hopefully our SRO has already neutralized the threat in whichever way, shape, fashion, or form that occurs. And as we arrive, we will begin start up a command center, okay? And if y'all are not familiar, this is based off National Incident Command System. It's based off the NICS program that is nationwide. It's a nationwide thing. After Katrina and a couple other big things hit, the federal government came out and established a system, so all public safety pretty much follow this same typical type of protocol, so that way we can all get together and it all runs it runs a lot better than having 12 different departments trying to do 12 different things. You understand what I'm saying? All right, so we'll start the command center. He will provide status of the officer, if he's shot, if he's injured, does he need medical help, what's the suspect's status, and any possible casualties. And if he understands there's casualties somewhere, what are we trying to do then? Trying to get that to the command staff so we can get medical personnel in as fast as we can, and then that way we can possibly save anybody that we have an opportunity to. Guide the command center on infill and exfil points. It's another big deal, and it's very school specific, because we were talking about it earlier. Like Tallapoosa Primary, we can take y'all outside. We don't have to bring y'all back through the building. May brought up a good point whenever we were talking about it earlier, because you probably don't want to walk a bunch of small kids past a bunch of people bleeding out, right? Or whatever's possibly going on in that hallway. You don't want to bring them back through where that gunfight occurred. So if we can take them out and save them from that traumatic experience, we would be better off to do that. So that's how we're going to start guiding people. Middle school kind of set up the same way. We'll work on infill and exfil points for medical personnel, because where we're exfilling people out, we're trying to infill medical personnel in if need be. And any possible search elements. Why would we need search elements? Because if you got a kid that left to go to the bathroom and you had to lock the door behind him, you probably want to know where that kid is as fast as possible, right? Because what are you going to be concerned with as a teacher? Little Johnny ain't here. I don't know where little Johnny is. I got to find little Johnny, right? So we'll start organizing some search elements, try to get a hold of, see if we can find little Johnny. Guide the command center on any other areas that may need to be secured for evidentiary purposes related to the active threat. Like I said, if this turns into a running gunfight, it started inside, wound up being outside by the time it was neutralized. We've got to secure that area, so we may work things around that particular hallway or around that particular area. Any questions about any of that? Not one. Okay, all right. Lay it on me.
As far as a teacher, I know we're supposed to go in our room, lock the door.
Mhm.
There's not going to be any sweepers to check the hallways once we went in, because I know in pre-K, we have a bathroom in our room, but the other grade level of the other grades do not. So there might be children out in the halls. And I just, as a teacher and a mother, I feel like we have enough staff, at least 2 people in a hallway could be assigned to sweep the halls and the bathroom and have a designated spot to go with those children.
You want to answer it now? All right. He's going to come back to that. He addresses that later on. You okay with holding off on that just momentarily? Okay. Any other questions? All right. Command center will be established by the first Haralson County School Police officer on scene once threat is eliminated, barricaded, or secured. Okay. So we're talking about eliminated. We've probably killed him, right? Or her. Barricaded means we've got him confined to a specific area and we have a perimeter established around that area where he's not going to be able to get out. Okay? Secured means as unlikely as it was, but it happened in Appalachia, he gave up and surrendered, which was surprising to me because that very rarely ever happens. So he was secured that way. Command center will be located in a secure area of the premises, preferably outside initially. Why outside? Because there's going to be a lot going on now. If we have, a thunderstorm outside and it needs to move inside because of communication issues with being outside, that may be the case, but more likely we're going to establish a command center outside than that way, because what are we trying to do at some point? We're trying to get everybody else outside, right? So we want to be outside where we can establish those safe areas and stuff like that. And we need to be outside with that so we can whoever's in the command center kind of oversee that. Command center duties will be turned over to the Haralson County Superintendent and the chief and or captain, depending on what element or what role they played in the active threat. So if John happens, let's say it's Buckhannon Elementary, John happens to respond to Buckhannon Elementary, he gets involved in the shooting. Is he going to be running the command center at that point? Probably not. Probably he's going to fall to Kendall or me after that, along with Dr. Bell. All right, so command center duties is coordinate with officers engaged with a threat. Probably need to coordinate with them first, because that's probably my best source of intel, right? He probably knows exactly what's going on. If he's been the one engaged, he probably knows exactly what's going on, so I need to get everything I can get from him, right? Then we're going to start setting up a safe area for students and staff, because what do we want to do? When you're in the room locked down, do you know what's going on? You have no clue, right? You have no real communication with us, right? But if we start escorting you out into a safe area, what's more than likely? We've probably got the area safe, right? We've probably secured whatever or neutralized whatever issues that were a problem, okay? So now it puts y'all in a better feeling, so we're going to try to work through that as fast as we can. We're also going to set up a perimeter around your particular school using LEOs only, and the reason for that is if you did have a little Johnny, like we talked about little Johnny being outside and he hit an exit instead of a bathroom and he run to the wood line, right? He goes 20, 30 yards deep in the wood line. He starts seeing law enforcement. Now he knows he can come back out. He needs to come back out to law enforcement. The secondary part of that is we want to keep, Bubba and his 3 cousins with their 12 gauges coming down there to help out of the crime scene and away from that area, right? Also, we want to keep the media out of the area, okay? But it's designed to keep us in, so that way if we exfil you out the back and the safe zone is in the front, you can walk all the way around, because what's the best thing to see during a critical incident once that occurs? And what gives me confidence I can walk outside and be okay? Seeing a bunch of guys with badges and guns, right? Because I know they're there to help me, and I can walk as a kid from point to point to point, from next cop to next cop to next cop, until I get into a safe area where there's a bunch of police and a bunch of medical personnel, right? So we'll set that up, and it's twofold. Okay, then at this point we'll have to begin starting medical staging areas. Medical staging areas are more like setting up the ambulances and the helicopters. We have to live flight anyone. So that way if we have any kind of major casualties, the ones that can be driven in an ambulance, great. The ones that have to be live flighted, we'll have somewhere set up for that, for them to be able to get in and get somebody the medical attention they need and get them somewhere quickly. If the threat is eliminated or secured, it'll be 1 LEO per group of medical personnel. So if I'm that guy and I'm taking them in, I may have 4 or 5 firemen, 3 or 4 EMS folks, and I'm guiding them into an area, because where are my casualties probably going to be? they're probably going to be relatively centrally located, right? Because with the SRO on scene, your response time is about 3 minutes. Okay, 3 minutes or less is about the average response time when you have an SRO on scene. And that means from the time we get or made aware of the threat to the time the threat is neutralized or is no longer a threat, right? So probably a short time frame, short space, small area that I can get medical personnel into. I can take an entire group in. Now, for whatever reason, this turns into a guy come in, shot the place up, ducked out the back door, and we're in a search mode. It'll turn into more of a threat unsecured. It'll be one LEO per one medical staff. So you'll have one cop going in with one EMS person or maybe their team that comes off the ambulance. Does that make sense? You understand what I'm saying? And the reason why we're going to do that is we're going to escort them in. And if the threat pops his head back up, I expect that LEO to be able to take care of, and y'all know what I mean by LEO, law enforcement officer. Sorry if I'm throwing acronyms at you. But that law enforcement officer to be able to take care of that threat, okay? Every person transported by medical staff must also be accounted for prior to leaving. So before they get on the helipad or the helicopter, before they get in the ambulance, we need to account for them because later on, whenever we start taking a tally of who's missing and who ain't, I don't want 2 or 3 folks at Grady that we're searching through the woods for when we should have known where they were, right? All right, then we're going to start assigning school personnel to notify parents for the next of kin for the medically transported. Because if this was your son or daughter being transported, you'd want to know as fast as possible, right? So we're going to try to work that and get that taken care of and start sending parents to the appropriate hospitals. All right, coordinate with the fire department and or municipalities to block off roadways to allow only first responders into the area. Some schools this is easy, some schools this becomes a nightmare. But we're going to work this in, and what we're going to try to do is we're trying to contain the area, and for numerous reasons. Again, we don't want parents in the area. We don't want parents running up into the safe area or safe zone and creating more chaos and more havoc. We don't want media involved inside that area no more than we. And again, going back to Bubba and his 3 cousins with their 12 gauges coming up there wanting to help, we got to keep those people outside of that area, right? Because y'all know as well as I do, we're in Haralson County. You know you're going to get all the help you need, even if you want it or not. All right. Coordinate an off-site area to accommodate all the students. We have a predetermined off-site area. Matter of fact, we have 2. We don't give that information out due to the fact of what happens when it's, let's say Mickey's the shooter. Mickey becomes an active threat. He loses his mind, decides to be an active threat. He knows where our off-site location is now. It becomes an interior threat versus an exterior threat, right? So what could he do if he knew where the off-site safe area was? He could sabotage it, right? He could booby trap it, set up some IEDs, some vehicle-borne IEDs. He could do a lot of things in that area, okay? So that's the reason why we're not going to give out that information. That'll be kind of a need to know, day of kind of thing. But even still, we'll still send 2 law enforcement officers over to secure the off-site reunification point or safe area. And then we'll have them stay on scene the entire time. And their job is to secure that building. Also, kind of the way we secured the perimeter here. We're not letting media in. We're not letting people in that don't need to be in with those kids. Okay? Or y'all, because I'm sure y'all are going to be just as traumatized by this as anybody. We'll coordinate with the board or school to provide school personnel to provide accountability for every student and staff member on site. So basically what we're going to do is if it's your school, be prepared to have some of your admin, your teachers, or anybody that can work that Infinite campus be transported over to that off-site location, because we're going to account for them at the school as they get on the bus, and as they come off the bus, we're going to account for them again as they get into the safe area, right? So that way we know where everybody is. If we know where they are, we want to continue to know where they are until they go home, okay? I see a scowl look on your face, Katrina. What do you not understand? What do you got in your safety plan?
Like it's in the majority of the safety plans where that reunification site.
Yeah, what do you got wrote in there?
It's old.
Well, what is it?
Right now it's the elementary school gym, and then it's the church.
Yeah, it won't be that.
That'd be no different. So
Yeah, it won't be that. Now, can that stay in there for, let's say, a natural disaster drill or a fire or something like that?
Gas leak.
Yeah, gas leak, by all means, use that for that. But as far as active shooter or active threat, something as this goes, it'll be something different.
That wasn't a scout, that was
I seen it. I know what it looks like. I worked over there with you for a while. I could hear the gears turning from here. All right. Command Center coordinate transportation of all accounted for students and staff to the safe area, 1 Leo per bus. That means kids and teachers that get on that bus, you're going to have a cop escort you. He's going to get on the bus with you. Okay? Because, again, after this occurs, what's the best thing to see? Good guys with guns, right? As long as we got good guys with guns around, we feel a little safer after this has occurred. Coordinate any cost accrued for. That's where Dr. Bell comes in, holding the purse strings. You know, coordinate any cost accrued for food, drinks, and other possible needs for the off-site location. Because again, this is something else I also want you to understand. This is going to be a very long and drawn-out process. This is not going to go fast. It's not going to be a matter of an hour or two. This is going to take a lot of time. Okay, there's a lot of coordination, there's a lot of moving parts, and there's going to be a ton of things that have to occur in order for us to release. Because depending on which federal agency or state agency, and probably both, show up, there is going to be getting contact information from everybody that was involved or everybody that had anything to do with it. There's going to be a lot of witness statements. There's a lot of investigatory things that'll have to occur after the fact. Okay, now they may not occur that day. It may not be that particular day, but they're going to want all the contact information so they can do that. And like I said, it's a 3 or 4, probably month-long process. It's going to take a while. But the day of, if this happens at your school, don't expect to go home anytime soon. Expect it to be a long day. Okay? Coordinate with outside agencies for resources such as bomb dogs and tracking dogs. Why bomb dogs? Come on, y'all know each other. Don't act like y'all are scared to speak up. Come on. All right, bomb dogs. So I don't know if y'all know this about Columbine, right? Columbine was very unique, and not only was it the first one, but it was very unique in all the ones we've kind of studied since then. Columbine had bombs on the pillars in the cafeteria, and the idea was they were sitting out in a car that also had a bomb in it. And what their idea was to blow the pillars and bring the cafeteria roof down on the heads of their fellow students and kill as many as they could that way, then come in, start shooting the place up. And then they had a secondary device, a vehicle-borne, what we now refer to as a vehicle-borne IED. They had it in the trunk of their car and wanted it to go off and hurt as many first responders and any maybe possible survivors in the parking lot as a secondary device later. Fortunately, they weren't technically sound enough to get either of them to work, and that's why most people don't have any idea about it. If you ever watch the video and you go back and watch them, they walk into the cafeteria, you see the big flush of people run out of the other end where they started shooting. They shoot for a little while, and then they come back to the cafeteria and they show them shooting at nobody in the cafeteria. And what we presumed is they went back and they were trying to shoot these bombs, these little makeshift bombs, and trying to get them to blow up. And they just weren't, their marksmanship wasn't good enough, or whatever firepower they had just wasn't strong enough to make it explode, I guess. But they failed miserably throughout the entire thing. So, like I said, bomb dogs. We're going to avoid parking lots whenever we do any of the exfil kind of stuff, because, like I said, it's just a matter of time. Where do active shooters learn from? Previous active shooters and what? Terrorists. Okay? They watch things like that. That's where they pick up a lot of their ideas. Okay? And what are terrorists doing? Vehicle-borne IEDs, right? A lot of them. You know, suicide vest or vehicle-borne IEDs. It's just a matter of time for one of these guys figures it out. He finds the right website on the dark web or whatever and gets it right. So we'll have bomb dogs, and then we'll have tracking dogs. Tracking dogs are for little Johnny that hit the exit, right? Little Johnny hit the exit, went to the wood line. We can't find little Johnny. We can't find him in the building. We've done a building search. Now we need to start tracking for people out in the wood line and see if we can come up with these kids and or adults, because you subject to have a vendor in the building that works for Coca-Cola and him decide, I'm out, you know, and we need to figure out where he is too, right? All right, and then the command center will also coordinate with state and federal law enforcement agencies in reference to the incident investigation. Again, like I've referred to already, where at some point we got to put this in front of a grand jury, right? We got to get the grand jury to no bill it, right? As far as we did the right thing and it was justifiable, whatever we had to do on our end, correct? So in order for that to happen, we have to bring either GBI, FBI, and depending on whether there's bombs, possibly ATF, maybe even Homeland Security, depending on how bad a critical incident this becomes and what they decided to utilize. So a lot of coordination with those folks. Set up a mediary and appoint a public relations officer. Public relations officer may be law enforcement or it may be somebody from the district office. And again, as far as y'all go, my advice to you is if you get an opportunity to speak to the media, don't. Just no comment and go on and leave it at that, okay? Now, it's your choice if you decide to talk to them, but my recommendation is I wouldn't. All right, so then we'll begin coordinating all the other school releases. So let's say it happened at the high school. We're going to begin to start releasing all the other schools and let everybody else go home. Then that way that opens up what for us? More resources, right? Because now we got more buses to deal with. All the officers that we have in our department that are still on lockdown securing their schools, they will become available to us and we can utilize them for more things because like I said, it's not going to be a short process. It's going to be a very long, drawn out process. Guide officers like I said, the officers that we'll get will guide them in support roles such as bus security and offsite area security. We'll coordinate with any medical, psychiatric, or clergy because these kids, even back to the reunification point, they're probably going to need somebody to talk to, right? There's probably going to be a few of them not going to handle this real well, probably going to need somebody to talk to. So we will vet some of these folks that are coming in. It's going to be people we know or people we can certify and maybe have them come in if we get some volunteers to be able to do so. Probably bring a lot of the school counselors in, the ones that are prepared to come in and take on that responsibility to come in and talk to these kids about that. Just whoever we can use to help these kids, we'll try to use them for that particular part, at least initially. Yeah? Yes? No? Yeah? All right. So assign school personnel for any unaccounted for student or staff member. And we talk about school personnel, we're not talking about having you go walk through the woods looking for them. But if you get access to Infinite Campus, can we start calling parents? Being like, hey, because if you start getting middle school or high school kids, are they subject to have maybe made their way home? Are they subject to have a cell phone and maybe called mom to come pick me up? Say if it's here down to the dairy farm, they went down to the dairy farm, got mom to pick them up down there, possibly. But if we can just figure out that they did make it home, then we can check them off and go to the next one, right? So we'll assign school members for that. Assign one of my guys to notify next of kin for any deceased student or staff, okay? And then we'll also have to contact the coroner if we have any casualties that are that severe. Any questions about that? No? All right. So departmental goals. This is our number one right here. Ensure the safety of all students, staff, and visitors. Preservation of life, even at the cost of our own. So whenever you see one of my guys walking around your school, understand he's committed to this right here. This is what we talk about all the time. We train for this. We do everything we can for this right here. Okay? He's willing to give up his to save yours. So then we talk about being professional. Do your job. If you ask my guys, that's my only rule. Do your job. It encompasses a lot of things, but that's my only rule. Do your job. Stay in shape. As far as I know, we're the only department within probably a 10-county radius that I'm aware of that has a PT test. We're the only ones. Our shooting standards are higher, whether it be a pistol, a rifle, everything is much higher. The state sets a standard here, and ours are way up here, okay? So we have a PT test. Our marksmanship is way better than most departments. I'd take my worst shooter in our group and put him against most departments' best shooter and smoke him every day of the week, okay? Tactically sound. My guys can testify to this as Payne's the best teacher. So we have Glock sim guns, They shoot paintballs essentially, and we work tactics. And if you make a mistake, it's painful, okay? But you know what happens the next time whenever they do that, they don't make that same mistake, okay? They get it right, and they get it right, and we do better and better and better every time. And it's getting to the point that me playing the bad guy, I don't like it as much anymore because I get shot a lot. All right, so they'll preserve evidence. We talked about that, report writing, courtroom demeanor, reliable, coachable, courteous, and be a professional every day, okay? Like I said, this PowerPoint was more set up for my guys than y'all. But, all right, any final questions about what our response will look like? Nothing? All right, so that being the case, I'm gonna turn it back over to John. And if y'all come up with questions later, I'll be up front. Y'all are more welcome to come up and ask, or ask John whenever he's standing up here.
All right, so now you've seen what a response looks like. It's ultimately at the end of the day, it's hectic for any and everybody involved, but it's vitally important for you to know your role within your school. Even I talked to one after the last session, and they bounced between schools, and they had a lot of questions. But if you're one of those, then it's important for you to understand what your safety protocols look like at each school and what's required of you. On that, reason why it's important to know, and what we did to try to make it a little easier, if you've ever looked over your school safety plan, it's several pages. So instead of you carrying around a binder and going, okay, I think what I'm supposed to do was on page 32, and you're trying to find it in the heat of an incident, we did what's called the school safety plan at a glance, which is one single sheet of paper in a flow chart to make you aware of what your role is in any type situation. Some folks were asking if they don't have a role, what do they do? Once that situation has resolved and we're to that point of reunification, each one of you will probably get assigned something. Once we get your class out and secured, then you may be helping run Infinite Campus at the reunification point so that we can start getting kids back to their parents. It's a very fluid thing, but it's important for you to know. So if you're not familiar, I ask that you sit down, get with your safety teams there at your school and start looking over those flow charts so that you know your role, or at least ask the questions of, well, I'm not on here, what do you want me to do if that ever happens? And again, be ready to be fluid, because it's an ever-evolving situation. So we'll go into a few things, and hopefully it'll answer some questions that were asked through the survey that was sent out through the board news. If we don't answer it, I'll try to. Again, we can sit and throw out questions and answers all day long and poke holes in it. But some of the things that we do as a district is to try to make it as safe as possible while we're here. And what we do is we take these old situations and we debrief it and we learn from it. What did they do? What worked? What didn't work? And we evolve with that, and we change the way that we do things. So you'll see here, if you didn't get signed in, I'll put this back up at the end, or else you got to come back and do it all again. Here's some numbers, and this was from an FBI study from 2001 to 2022, just on some of the locations of where something took place and the numbers involved around it. As you can see, there's no particular place it can happen any and everywhere, and we just try to do our best to protect against that. As you can see here, during that time period, K through 12, there was 62 incidents with 419 casualties. Here in just a second, you'll see where the majority of those casualties come from. So whenever we're coming around to the schools and we're telling you, lock the door, lock the door, lock the door, you're sick of hearing it, it's simple, it's quick and easy, well, there's a reason behind it. Still too often we find a doorstop, a rug, or something holding the door open. We've got to get away from that. All the incidents that occurred in the past has been because they have found an open door. We've even come across some classrooms where the door plunger on the side of the door is taped shut. That way you can just pull it to and open it whenever you want to. You take Lakeland or Parkland, Florida shooting. He comes in on the first floor. First door he comes to was unlocked. Mass casualties. Second door, unlocked. Mass casualties. You take Sandy Hook, first door he come to, locked, no casualties. Second door, unlocked, mass casualties. Seems to be a going trend. That's why we harp on it and harp on it and harp on it to keep your doors secured. If you keep them secured, then it's easier for us to mitigate the situation, but two, and you'll see it in a video that I'm going to show you from the Nashville shooting, shooters get in their mind what they're wanting to do. They start preparing, planning, training before they enact their plan. Their goal is to come in and kill as many as they can. Simple as that. Same way with us. When we train to the highest extent so that when you're in a high stress situation, your mind and body will always resort back to its lowest level of training. So for you, for instance, if you don't practice your safety protocols, you don't do drills, you don't look it over, and then you get in a high stress situation where there's gunshots going off, there's yelling and screaming, there's the flashing lights, there's the intercom system, and you're sitting there in a full panic, it's because you wasn't prepared. That's what we want you to get from this, is that you'll take a deeper look into it and start preparing. So these shooters have the mindset of killing as many as they can. So to answer one question we've talked about, or it's been asked, what about students in the hallway? Part of your safety plan should be, say you've got a child that leaves to go to the bathroom and we go under a lockdown. You should go over with them, either A, they need to lock down in the bathroom, or B, find if there's an open office or anything like that they can lock into, or lock down in. Reason being, you open the door, you've now subjected the rest of your class, not just one, but probably 30, to this gunman. Take Appalachia. One of the rooms that was entered into was because the door was open to check for students. Well, now we got mass casualties and injuries from one room. So that's why we have to lock it down. But if you will take the time, and you should, to go over with your students what we expect. Day one, first thing you should go over is school safety. This is what we expect. If you go to the bathroom, you'll go in, you'll lock down in the bathroom. Now, we run an open concept bathroom pretty much across the district. It's just a brick wall with an opening and you can go in. If I get time, I'll pull up the Parkland shooter, but all the ones prior to that have never made entry into the bathroom, an open concept bathroom. Again, they go to their lowest level of training. They know the majority of their students are in that classroom. If I can get in that classroom, I can kill as many as I want to. And every one of them, when you watch the track of a shooter in the open concept bathrooms, they don't even detour towards it. They go straight past it and go to the first door they come to. Over and over, time and time again. That's why we utilize it. I've heard some say, well, that's scary for a student to have to go into a bathroom and get on top of the toilet and shut the stall and just be quiet. Well, at least they're alive. It's at least better than running down the hall. Parkland, Florida, again, some of the ones that were killed were running down the hall trying to get back into locked classrooms. But if you would go over and explain to them where else they could go, then you could help preserve that life. There is no perfect scenario to where we're going to be able to protect every single student, staff, whatever, in a situation like this, unless the person that's shooting the gun pulls it out right beside an officer. We already know you can't have a gun on school property, and we can handle it right then. Outside of that, it's normally we're going to find out about it when that first shot's fired. So reiterate your safety plan, your protocols to your students and staff, and you'll see why in just a second. So we'll look at Nashville first. And what happens is, where I want to get back to is, people have asked also about the playground. If you're on the playground, my word of advice is to hit the woods and get going. Somebody earlier said, if you're here or Tallapoosa, then run all the way to the Burger Chick. That's fine with me. You don't have to go that far, but you can tell them to run. You don't have to make entry back into the building unless they're out there and you need to get away. But get away as far as you can. I've heard, well, what if they trip and fall and break an arm or leg, to get bit by a snake, or get in the creek and crawdads get them? Whatever. I'd much rather deal with that than a loss of life. So get away from the scene and we'll find you later. We can reunify tomorrow morning for all I care, as long as we find you alive. But what you'll see here with the Nashville shooter is they are dead set, and this has been time and time again, this one just shows it in a great view, time and time again, that their focus is to get inside of that school, find an open classroom, and kill someone. In this case, there was 4 people killed in the Nashville shooting. Does anybody know who the 4 were? I'll tell you, 2 of them were students. Now, whether they're going to the library, going to the lunchroom, going to the bathroom, I don't know, but 2 students that were out in the hallway. Maybe we could have told them to lock down in the bathroom. I don't know. Hindsight's 20/20. The other was an administrator. When we do lockdown drills, what's your administrators doing? They're sweeping. They're out looking. Who's following protocol? Is there anybody that's out and about? Unfortunately, that's their job. That's their duty. If you're an aspiring leader, that's your duty, is to go out and check. My officers are coming in. We're doing all that we can. You may lock down as administrator, but most of the time, they're checking. So the administrator was shot and killed. The 4th person was the janitor. If you think about your school, your custodial service is out and about in the hallways at all times. They don't know. You may not tell them even when you're doing drills. So they go, just another drill, and keep sweeping. Well, that was one of the ones that got killed in Nashville. So we've got 2 students, an administrator, and a janitor, and I can justify 2 of them being where they were in encountering the gunman. The other 2 were students in between classrooms, and that's where, again, we go into these other locations where you could lock down. Hard as it is, they may come to your door banging on it, wanting to get in, but you have no idea if that gunman's standing there saying, bang on that door until they open it. You open it, now you've subjected your entire classroom, and say they don't kill you. Now you've got to answer for why you opened the door. That's a tough one to answer. It's a tough one to lose a child in a situation like that, but we've got to think about what our safety plan's in place for. So in this Nashville surveillance, you'll see that if they wanted to take life, they could do just that. So if the goal was just to kill any and everybody, which that's normally what we think with a terrorist type event like this, is they're just coming in, they're shooting and killing everyone. Again, their focus is to get inside of your building that we harp on to keep secure. So right here, if the goal was to kill somebody, what about the lawn care guy on the bottom right of the screen? Easy first target, would you agree? They're dialed in. Again, lowest level of training. Their mindset from this whole thing was, I got to get to so-and-so's classroom, and I'm going to kill so-and-so that was picking on me, or I'm going to kill so-and-so because I don't like them. But they have a plan in place, and they resort back to that lowest level of training. You can hit play. But maintenance guy's okay, leaf blower and all. As you can see, she'll make her way around the school. You'll have to pause it in about 2 seconds. Right there. Here in just a second, right there above Shooter Enter Nashville School is a playground with about 40 kids on it. If you'll watch hard, you'll see kids swinging. If the goal was to kill students, here's a great second stop because there's multiple children, staff, and everything out there. But again, the plan's in action for this shooter. Same thing, Parkland, Florida. Same thing, Uvalde. We can go Sandy Hook. There was other opportunities to take life. But again, the goal is to get inside. Go ahead, watch the top right and you'll see the kids. And we're less than 20 yards from them with a person who is dead set on taking someone's life today. Pause it. I've also heard questions about, well, in regards to this event with the glass doors and all that. In my opinion, this is the best case scenario. 1, she's going to shoot the doors or shoot the glass out, but 2, this isn't towards anyone. So this gives us a great opportunity to lock down and know that something is happening and secure everyone into a classroom the best that we can. But 2, your simplest train of thought also goes out the window because you'll see her shoot out the glass, and instead of just reaching in and opening the door, she climbs through it. So again, they go back to just what they know. They're in the moment, dealing with a lot of emotion. Go ahead. You'll see her climb through the bottom of the first door. Pause it. Right here, you see the weapon making entry into the room. Again, we should be locked down. Doors locked, secured, kids in the corner, nobody moving, everybody being as quiet as possible. There's our first unlocked door. As a district, we've done really great. You can continue to let it play. We've done really great with some of our lobby areas being even more secure than they ever were, with holding people there. That's as far as they can get. As you can see here, we got one open door to the left, another open door to the left. As she moves down the hall, you'll see her kind of move to the left, and that's where she encounters the first person that was out. And you'll see just a small blast from the rifle. All right. Just exit. Let me hold it right there for a second. So, in preparation, when we see all these things take...
It's a fizzy tablet and some water. If I put it inside, it starts fizzing. If I put a cap on top of it and flip it, eventually the pressure will build up and it might just...
There we go. One of them was playing. So back in August of 2022, when we started some of our rifle training as a police department, we come up with a training to implement which involves our officers, and this is their qualification course. They have to sit in their vehicle, seatbelt on, get out, retrieve their rifle, which is in the back, either by A, hitting a button on your key fob, or B, hitting a button inside of the car to get it open. And then once they retrieve their rifle, then they run 50 yards to the 100-yard mark, make 4 shots, 75, 4 shots, 50, 4 shots, 25, 6 shots, 15, 6 shots, and then transition to a pistol. But when we implemented this, we had no idea that we'd see it live and in color come March of 2023 when Nashville happened. So you can watch the training by our guys that they do during what we would normally be doing today on our training days or work days. Again, Nashville happened, and I'll show you the body cam footage, and it'll look eerily similar to what we were training on just months prior. Go ahead. Go back to the slide. That training that we do there for my officers, whenever they're coming into this school district, say they're new and they just applied and want to work here, first thing they have to do is pass a physical fitness test. 2, they have to pass our firearms qualification. That's just our rifle. They also have to pass our pistol qualification, which is just as intense. All that has to be done with under 2 minutes. If you miss any body shot, that's a penalty of time, and you'd have to run it again. You run it immediately after that. Reason why we train that hard, again, you go back to your lowest level of training. So if they train in high stress situation where they know there's a time and they've got to be accurate, then ultimately, if the time comes within the school district, then they will perform under pressure. But again, as you see, that was August 29th of 2022. March 27th, 2023 is when the Nashville shooting happened. And I'll play this video all the way through. You can watch how the officers move through. You can see them checking doors. Hey, this one's locked. They're able to move on. Same thing for us. If your door's locked, not saying that the gunman couldn't barricade themselves, but we check everything that's open first. And then if we no longer hear the threat, then we know that we've got to go room to room. But later in the video, you hear them, I think they're shooting upstairs, and you see them move towards the threat. So again, they encounter locked doors, unlocked doors, and the work that it puts on our end to try to get through this situation so that we can render the school safe at the end of the day. Nope, wrong one.
The future of your business is here. With Wix, you get advanced AI capabilities. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Hey. Give me 3. Let's get 3. Let's go. I need 3. 4. Let's go. Metro Police. Next. Open it, I got it. Let's go. Take this with you, take this. No, let's walk. Take this, go. Take this door, take it. Get upstairs, contact upstairs.
All right, so as you can see in that video where he pulls up to the scene, gets his weapon out of the trunk, and then runs through the school, eerily similar to how we were training back in August. There's always a method to the madness, and that's why we harp on some of the things that we do across the school district with locking doors, making sure that you're not taping over the plunger so that doors aren't properly secure, and you got door stops when you're in the classroom, making sure they're locked. But ultimately is making sure that you are going over your school safety plan with your students, your protocols, and why we do the things that we do here at Haralson County. So something else that I wanted to go over that was asked was cafeterias. We did a training down at Bowden Middle School about 2 years ago where the state come in and they put on a training where the active shooter was a parent at like a parent day or a parent lunch, whatever, and they were mad at a teacher and had brought a gun and was going to do something. Lunchroom's full of people, and again, cafeteria is probably our worst case scenario because ultimately you lock down, you can't get anywhere in the school, but what you still have is your external exits. So what we ask then, whenever you're in a cafeteria type situation, is to find an exit and get gone to remove yourself from that location. Hopefully it doesn't take place in there. If it's in the hall, then you've got time to get out. But if not, you can also utilize the kitchen area to barricade up. But those are the situations that, again, we play by ear. We can what if it and what if it and what if it, that we have to utilize what's available to us, which is exits, kitchen area, which kitchen area also has an exit to get away from the scene. And again, go and run as far as you possibly can. But during those type situations where we're locked down, that's why it's important we secure our doors, utilize Centegix. It's a great asset for us to have. You can lock down the school with simple presses of that thing, but also wearing your ID badge so that when we do come in like that, if you happen to be out in the hall, there's an opportunity to identify you instead of thinking you're just someone that showed up and then you're on the ground in handcuffs, wondering what you did wrong, because we're able to identify you, put you to the side, and keep moving. Something else we did to make our schools safer that some people do know about, don't know about. If you look over at that door over there, you see the G9 right below the exit sign. We did that across the district, reason being, you probably have an external exit or an exit outside there at your classroom. We labeled all of the doors, and you should become familiar with them because say it takes place on your hall, it takes place near your classroom, whatever, and you happen to call 911 or be on your school radio or something, you can tell them which location you're at, but it helps them, but it also helps us as the responding officers to know exactly where to go. We've shared this with 911, the other public safety around the county, and we did that because a conversation come up here about the high school one time, and somebody made the statement of, well, it's over in the math academy. Well, when I was here, it was the freshman academy. So these buildings are ever changing. If you told me it was on the science hall, I may not know where the science hall is. So we simplified it. We brought it down to labeling the doors so that we could locate where to go in, where to make entry at any point in time throughout the school. And I'll show you a map of that and what that looks like in just a second, but I want to hit this real quick. This is a look back at Nashville, MSU, and the Douglas High School in Parkland, where, again, we dealt with unlocked doors and the loss of life. So you get sick and tired of hearing it. Well, there's a reason. Time after time, you look at Nashville, entering apparently empty office through an unlocked door before emerging, pointing the barrel of a gun down the hallway, then going through a set of unlocked double doors, which you've seen there in the video before she made her way down and fired down the hallway. You go to MSU, the MSU Union Building, home to a food court, entered through an unlocked door. In February 2018, a mass shooting at Stoneman Douglas, gunman entered. The gates and doors where the gunman entered were left unlocked, open, and unattended. You go to Uvalde, there was a door that wasn't properly secured. You go to Sandy Hook, got in, first door, locked. Second door, not so much. mass casualties. So if you get sick and tired of hearing about locked doors, you should, because we're going to continue to say it until there isn't proof that it doesn't work to lock your doors and secure your room. So going back to the door labels, whenever you pull up to a campus so that everybody could be on the same page, when you pull up, everything works in a clockwise type formation with how we identify where to go in. Say we're back here at A14 and you let us know that that's where you're at or that's where he's at, then we know we can either get close by coming in A13, A15, A16, and instead of running through the entire building to locate where exactly you're at. So that's why it's important to know what doors are there on your hall. And if you can get that basic of information out, then we can get to you quicker. Your SROs probably know it the best with walking your school every day. Again, that's Buchanan Primary, since they share a property. You got the pre-K across the street, which is your B building. But as you come through the properties, and Buchanan Elementary becomes the C building, then you got the gym, that's the D building, and it goes from there. And there's kind of a broad overview of how that lays out, and that's how we identify it, and that's how 911 has it. Someone asked earlier, what if we're inundating 911 with calling them? That's fine. They got multiple lines for that reason. But if you can say, hey, I'm down here in D building, and he's right outside, then we can get to you quicker. It's faster response means that we can eliminate the threat quicker, which is less loss of life. Tallapoosa Primary, West Harrelson, the middle school, and of course the high school where you're at today, and you're in building G. As you can see, it's multifaceted, but the reason why we do some of the training that we do, like the running, what if you had to go from B building, which is the freshman academy, all the way down to fine arts, all the way across the campus, and then still be accurate? Everything's in place for a reason. We have safety protocols for a reason, so that we can hopefully protect our students to the best of our ability. Because when mom and dad send them here, then we want them to know that they're safe. And I think a lot of you do a great job with explaining what our safety protocols are. Like past couple of weeks, we've done lockdown drills, and my son, who's in kindergarten, I asked him if he was aware of what was taking place about the drill, if he knew what to do, and he said, yeah, we get in the corner, we be quiet, but we're not scared. And I'm like, that's right. So whoever's teaching them that is doing a great job. But if we can continue to instill that and let them know what to do in these type situations from that young of an age all the way through them graduating, then we make them safer because they know what to do, they're trained on it, they're familiar with it. It makes our job easier, and everyone knows their role when it comes down to the brass tacks of what an active shooter may look like. So hopefully a couple of those videos that you watched with the Nashville gunman made you a little uncomfortable. I hope so, because if you're uncomfortable, you'll start pulling out measures to get comfortable, which may mean practicing your safety plans, reading them, learning them, having those discussions with your team meetings there at the school, so that everybody's on the same sheet of music. Because at the end of the day, we want our school district to be as safe as possible, and we've implemented a whole lot to make it that way. I mean, we've got the school police department, we've got thumbprint access, we're locking doors, we've got Centegics, just endless things, and we could continue to dump money and dump money and dump money on it. But again, there's no perfect plan to make it completely 100% safe. But if everybody does their part, then we're safer than we was yesterday. And if we learn from these events, like what happened in Nashville, what happened in Appalachia, then we can continue to make our school district safer.